hit record as well.
Just say that again.
I've got it all recording now so that we can hold anything you say against you.
Okay. Indeed. Yes. Our lawyers are just off to the side here. That's right. That's
right. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to be able to chat to you about mentoring and to be able to share with our church. Just really appreciate it. I haven't given them an intro yet, but I'll give them an intro on Sunday morning. They all know you, of course, Sam, but they don't know you so well, Ev. But it'll be great for them to hear from both of you, your views on mentoring. You have the questions that I sent through?
We do.
All right. Is there anything else you want me to ask as well as those questions?
Not really. We'll just see how it goes.
All right.
Yeah, we probably
go on.
Yeah, we probably, some of the questions were a little bit hard to define, like in answers, but we'll do our best. And
I'll change the question if it doesn't suit me when you ask me.
You're more than welcome to.
It just kind of starts it, doesn't it? And then we can kind of just go where it goes, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll start properly, and we'll go from there. So thanks Sam and Ev for joining us this morning. Last week, actually, just to let you know, we talked about mentoring, and I talked a little bit about how how Jesus' disciples, his first disciples, actually asked to stay with him. That they wanted to know where Jesus was staying, and that's an element of mentoring. Is who wants to stay with you, who wants to be with you to grow in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and with people is the bit of definition I gave to mentoring, what a mentor does. And so this whole concept of staying with someone is a key part of mentoring, in my view. But I wanted to ask the two of you, you've mentored a lot of people during the years. I don't know if the two of you could count or even would try to keep count, or maybe at different times you do, but why do you mentor people, and why do you think God has asked you, the two of you each, to mentor people?
Well, for me, I mean, I didn't know I was mentoring anyone, really, for a lot of years.
That's right, isn't it? You know.
And you only know when someone says something to you about that. You know, they say, "Oh, you're a good mentor," or, you know, "Oh, am I really? Am I?" So
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that I was impacting others, and I only realised when I had someone say some really powerful things to me about the impact I'd had on their life. That was a complete surprise to me.
Yeah, same here.
I mean, I think of a guy called Bruce, who's a very good friend of mine, has been a lifelong friend. He was in a youth group when I was a young youth leader, with Ev as my partner. And in my 40s, I spoke at his church, and when he introduced me at his church, he said all these amazing things about me, and I was blown away. And something happened as a result of that I think is important for people who want to make a difference in the world for the better. I then started to be more intentional and pay more attention to what was happening in the lives of others as a result of my living and Eve's living. And then we'd have conversations about that. You want to say anything more about that?
Yeah, I suppose, you know, again, for me, it's about what people say to you, and how you've helped them to see things that they didn't see. And I mean, I had a teacher. I was working in school as a teacher aide, and this teacher came in. He would come in early a few mornings a week before school started, so he could chat with me and ask me questions. He was struggling. He had depression. And I mean, I don't ever remember what I said to him. I just listened. I just did a lot of listening. But anyway, whatever I said, they had us over for a meal one night for dinner. And his wife said, I don't know what you did for him, but he's a changed person at home.
What is that? You know, it's just amazing, isn't it?
I was boggled, you know,
Yeah.
and I said, well, I just chatted with him. I just listened, you know. She said, well, whatever you did, it really worked for him.
So I suppose what we're saying there is that a lot of it.
And that was a lot of years. That was in the 80s, you know.
I can't remember what the question was, but the thing that I observe here, you're going to tell me what the question is that so much of our influence in the lives of others is unawares. That's the thing, that each of us are, I mean, that would be my takeaway. Yeah.
Unawares.
So I think for every person on the planet, they are influencing others, you know, whether it's a mother of a child or a friend at the footy club or someone you see at church over coffee or whatever it is, we're influencing one another. And mostly we are unaware of that influence. And I think what Eve and I have done from our 40s onwards is paid much more attention to that, haven't we?
Yeah.
And we talk about it ourselves. So we team in this stuff. Yeah. And I suppose too, because we've been pastors, of course, there's been a lot more people in our lives who look to us. But now we're not formal pastors, you know, formally pastoring a church, and we're just kind of retired people who are having fun. It's interesting to see how people seek us out and want to have conversations with us, want to ask us questions, will get in touch, all that kind of thing. And I suppose the question then is maybe why we think that happens, you know, what it is about us. So I mean, it's a weird thing to us, but clearly there are some things about us that enable that process. And I think we have reflected on that a bit now, again, as part of the intentionality, you know, the things that draw people to us and have them want to engage with us.
And I mean, even like being here in Melbourne, where we started that first church that we started as pastors, we've had amazing stuff said to us, feedback about what it meant to these particular people that spoke to us, and there's been quite a few. How much that we meant to them in their relationship, you know, following Jesus, when they made a commitment, and about how we interacted with them. And you saying that thing about staying with them as a mentor, staying with them, that kind of tied in. I thought of this situation we're in now. It's happening now. So people saying, really what they're saying is, you stayed with us because we've kept in touch with these people. You know, we've been available and all of that. So yeah.
And of course now there's warm gratitude is what we encounter now. And I've been struck by a couple of people that we've seen on this trip we're doing, who what I've been struck by is how much bigger and more beautiful they are. So that I can think of 3 people right off the top of my head that we've encountered here in Melbourne and had a meal with them or coffee with them. And I mean, they tell us that they think we're amazing. And that's probably true, you know.
But I think it's because of God.
Yes, yeah, that's right. She brings more humility to it, you know. But what struck me, besides the warmth that does for our souls, the warmth that gives to our souls, is how much bigger and deeper and broader each of those people are.
Yeah.
That they have built on the things that we help them lay in their lives by our mentoring. And the other thing is that I've been reflecting on the difference between, so I'm a big one on trying to understand the role I'm playing in any particular situation, identifying the role and what the limits and strengths of that are. And we were pastor to it. Well, we're in a pastor relationship with each of these three people I'm thinking of now. But what happened in that pastoral relationship is because we let them get close to us, and because we were real and vulnerable and self-revealing, they were mentored by us. So we're in the pastor role, but as pastors, we mentor them. What's happened, though, as our life's gone on, is people aren't necessarily within our pastoral ambit, but they want to engage with us on a personal level and on a regular basis. And so that's just more a kind of a mentoring role. So we both have people like that now in our lives. We don't pastor. We're not the church pastor.
No.
And it isn't necessarily about the things that a pastor would engage with in people. It's a kind of a broader life skill thing as well as the spiritual base. Yeah.
Yep. So why do you think God brings people to you then to mentor? What is God's motivation, or what does God see in you or see in them?
Well, I think, I mean, you have to say that if you've lived a life as a Christian, a real Christian, for 50 years, I mean, I gave my heart to the Lord at 9. I was 9 years old, and it was a big deal. I remember it well. And then I recommitted my life when I was 16, and I haven't gone back from
That's
that.
it. You've never questioned that,
I've
have
never
you?
questioned that.
Stood on that
I
foundation.
stood on that foundation because I knew that it was important to me to have God in my life. And because I wanted to be God's girl, if you like. That's really kind of how I put it back then. I wanted to be God's girl. And I think because of that, because I lived in a way, that's all I can only say. Because I lived that way, people were just naturally attracted to me.
And see, when I hear Ev talk to you like that, in answer to that question, in my head I'm going, well, wouldn't you want her as your mentor? I mean, she's just classy, isn't she?
Yeah.
And it's not just, it's funny, isn't it? It's not just that she has an experience of God that's real to her. It's the way she talks about it and the way she thinks about herself and the way you can hear the way she thinks about others. Am I allowed to make this observation about this beautiful woman I've been connected to for over 50 years?
It's rather humbling.
Yes, it is.
Humbling.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's part of who you are, see, that your humility and groundedness. Is this helpful?
It is.
Yeah. That you're, because I can see what in her, whereas I don't understand it in me. I'm always surprised and almost shocked, when people go, oh, I think you're amazing. I go, well, I wish you saw it from where I see it. It's not so red hot. But see, I can see it in Ev. When I heard her making those responses, I go, man, it's no wonder people want to be in her presence. So that would be the first thing that actually, it's kind of like, wouldn't you like to have her as your friend? Wouldn't you like to be doing life with her? Yeah. So, and what I find in me is I have people in my life like that. So, for example, the people we're staying with right now, who are in the other room listening, I want to be their friends. Like there are qualities about them
beautiful people
that draw me into their orbit, and those same qualities then have me asking questions of them about the things that I struggle to understand or do well. Is that even answering the question? I don't know. Just yes.
It is. So I've got Ev's answer. So Sam, so that's why people come to you, Ev, is that the dedication to life with God. Sam, for you, is there anything, or Ev, when you think of Sam, why do you think God sends Sam people?
Oh, that's a good idea. Why do you think I end up mentoring people?
I think that for Sam, because his life was a bit different to mine in the beginning, he was all against authority. He was, hard to put up with from people.
Hard to supervise.
And hard to supervise because he thought he knew everything. See, and so that was
hasn't changed very much. Sorry, just in different ways.
That's good.
So it was a different start for him, really. But as he's journeyed through, he's done the hard yards, in his relationship, with God, and doing what he felt he needed to obey God, to be the kind of person you need to be to have a good life. And I was just amazed by, we're sitting with a couple of friends we've known since we were in Melbourne, very influential kind of people, they've got money, plenty of money, but they don't, you look at them when we were chatting, the lady wanted to ask us, run by us, a situation where she didn't know what to do. It was a big deal and it involved her family. And she got so vulnerable when she talked about it. I've never seen her like that before, with the vulnerability. And Sam was just able to just speak into that whole thing and answering what she wanted to know. I'm sitting there thinking, wow, he's doing real well here, he's doing real well. And I thought
it was pretty amazing.
It was, and I thought, and she cried, she thanked him
in the most helpful way.
Most helpful way. And I just thought it was a God-inspired.
Yeah, absolutely.
God-inspired help that he gave her.
I mean,
because he couldn't do that on his own.
Given the
we can't do that stuff on our own.
No.
Can't.
I mean, given my 76-year-old brain, I was amazed at how much clarity I had in what was quite a complex family relationship thing. There's more than one kid involved, and they're all adults, and it's messy, and people are angry with one another. Lots of complex things going on, and interplays, and things that some of the parties don't do so well, and all that. So very, very complex. But somehow I was able to, I was amazed really that I was able to understand what the core issues were and communicate with them in a way that was clearly so amazingly helpful to her. And I'm in awe of this. So one of the things that I've noticed in my life is what I would describe as anointing. And to be frank, I have, when I retired 11 years ago, I decided that I would try and figure this stuff out. Because I think anointing is important, and it would be nice to be able to help others have it in their lives. I still don't understand it. I don't have a clue. I don't know why it is that God, so my answer to this question is, I don't know why God chooses me. I don't know why he anoints me, and the anointing is clear. I mean, we have all kinds of things happen, don't we, in our journey? What was that thing that happened about a week ago, and we just went, that was God. That was just God. And it was with a stranger. With someone we just met. And this amazing God conversation went on, or a helpful counselling thing. I can't remember what it was. So these things happen to us regularly when we travel and meet people we've never met before, even, let alone going and visiting our friends. So, and I don't know, Chris. I honestly don't know. My suspicion would be that it's about humility, which is why we get surprised all the time, because it must be that, yeah, I don't know. See, I think one of the reasons people are drawn to us is because we're vulnerable and real and open.
I think they trust us. I think there's, I think that people, if they're going to talk to you about something important,
yes, trust.
They need to trust you.
Mm.
So, trust is a big deal.
And see, from where we see it, we don't see it all this way, but others clearly see this. So I still don't embrace the idea that I'm the guru they think I am. I mean, it's not. My journey with me, I know who I am. Well, to the extent that one ever can. And I'm not that impressed, you know what I mean? So, but I suppose that's the humility, isn't it? See, that's what humility is, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think too, I think you need to be available to people. Some people,
that's true.
Availability,
openness, genuine warmth and friendship.
Yeah, and
interested in people.
And the interest, yeah. And that's what you kind of get back from people, that, people saying you're the best pastors we've ever had in our lives.
We've had a few of those this week.
But yeah, it's just a lovely, I don't know, I just feel blessed to have done this little trip into Melbourne.
It's been great.
These 4 days.
Yeah, we've been enjoying it.
And so, it's encouraged us. We've encouraged them, but they have really encouraged us.
Yeah, it's been lovely.
It's been a blessing. Yeah.
So on that, is there anything that when you look at the people that you have mentored, is there anything that you look at and go, okay, they've definitely got there are some common traits of people who are looking for a mentor, or common traits of people that you have mentored?
They are genuine people. They're not
shallow.
They're not shallow
or deceitful.
They're honest people.
Yeah.
They're honest.
Yeah. Honest with themselves first.
Yeah. And they actually want to grow. We've had a couple who just didn't want to do that. They didn't want to go.
So the organisation they were working with told them that they needed to have mentors. And we probably had the view that they would struggle with that. And I think the reason they asked us is because they knew we wouldn't give them a hard time, and that we wouldn't hold them accountable. And that's the thing about our mentoring. We think that if we're mentoring someone, they need to be prepared to hold themselves accountable. They need to take responsibility for that. And I thought that this couple probably wouldn't, because they didn't want to change, but they needed to respond to the organisational requirement that they had mentors. And the reason we engaged with that process, I mean, on the face of it, you might say, well, why did you do it? Well, the reason we did it was because we thought if we focused on establishing a long-term relationship with them, and they ever did want to do the hard yards, that made us available in their lives. And so what we did was we met with them regularly, which helped build relationship. And we invested for over 2 years, once a month, when we were around, not off in our caravan or overseas or something. And in the end, they just faded away. They didn't want to do it anymore. And I suspect that's because the organisational pressure changed. That's what I suspect. I've never had a conversation about it. But, now, do you want to clarify? I've wandered down this path, but do you want to clarify the question you were asking?
No, but when you said about organisational pressure, because I remember, I think 18 months maybe before I met the two of you, I was assigned a mentor, and we just never clicked. I was there because I had to be there, and he was there because it was an expectation on him, and maybe I didn't have the emotional maturity, or I didn't perceive that I had a need. But when I did meet, especially you, Sam, I knew I had a need. I had a need for wisdom and insight beyond what I currently had.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's the one. And look, I'd reflect on our relationship. So what I'd say about that is you are, I mean, we've known each other, I think, since 2007.
2008, 2009.
2009. So let's take 2009. That would be 13, 14 years. That's a long time now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, you've seen changes in me over that time, I'm sure. And certainly I've seen changes in you. So I would say that you are clearly a broader and deeper person than you were. And that's exciting to me. This is the reward of the mentor, you know, that when you, and basically really for me and you, it's about friendship. So this started when you asked me if I'd do coffee with you regularly, which is really my approach. So I just do the social time, invest the social time. And what happens when you do that, and if you're just genuine in that space, just a genuine human being, both of the parties are genuine human beings, relationship will develop, provided you're not very clumsy with relationships. And we're not, neither of us are.
Yeah.
So what happens is if you spend time, the relationship grows. And I think it's these subtle things often that some people don't seem to get, that actually all you need to do is just meet with people regularly and have coffee and have fun with them.
Be a friend first.
Yeah.
Be a friend.
Yeah. Like you've heard me say that when my friend Bruce said all those amazing things about me and said what a difference I've made in his life, and I had no idea it was happening and no idea that I was that influential in people's lives. And I was about 40 at the time. I was just in a state of shock, and I made a joke. My joke about that was I was just having fun. And what I see now, actually, is that that's central to our influence, that we know how to have fun with people. And actually, I'd say this. So the people we're staying with now, I would say, are even better at this than we are. So, and that's, of course, why we're friends, you know, because we're, you know what I mean?
Kindred spirits.
Yeah, so we just, I mean, the reason we get together with them isn't so we'll learn something. And they certainly don't get together with us so they'll learn something from us. Although I help him with his caravan fridge and stuff like that. But anyway, it's a bit of a running joke. Yeah, we just like one another and we get together, but then we come away the better for it, more encouraged, feeling good about ourselves, happy we're alive. And actually, while I'm on that, I think part of pastoring and mentoring, both those things, is creating a space in people's lives that increases their sense of well-being. And what that does is it gives them the strength they need to make the hard choices and make the hard changes. So would you say that's true in my relationship with you, that one of the keys is that you have more inner strength to do the difficult things?
Yeah. And just when I think about that, just that word encouragement, that internal courage to do the right thing because you talked it through with someone else.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the
Absolutely.
sense that this person believes in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people you like to have in your life are people who believe in you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I believe in them.
Yes.
It's important that it runs two ways. And you know, people have to be ready for mentoring. People have to be, you know, have to want to see it as important enough to say, look, I want a mentor. I want someone to mentor me. And I would say, you know, what do you look for? Like, one of the questions is, what do you look for someone else in a mentor? Well, you look for someone who's kind, who's vulnerable, who wants to improve their life, really.
Yep.
Well,
Wants to improve their life.
Their life. That's the bottom.
They're on a journey.
They're on the journey.
Trustworthy.
Trustworthy. They need to be trustworthy, because people aren't gonna do anything if they don't trust you. You know. So you need to find, if someone's looking for a mentor, they need to find someone they can trust first up. Really, I think.
And I've got, can I say?
Yeah, and you know, did I say kind? I didn't. Trustworthy, vulnerable, real, just real people, really. You know, there's a lot of fake out there. There's a lot of fake.
The other thing I'd say too is grounded. You know, you need some
ground. To follow on then from that, the two of you, from what I can gather, mentor different kinds of people. There seems to be, you're both different types of people who have worked together across a lifetime. What types of people seem to seek you out that's different from each other?
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Do you mean that there are different people than you are?
No, people.
Yeah, so Sam gets certain kinds of people who want to talk to him, and Ev, you get different kinds of people who want to talk to you. What do you notice that is different about the kinds of people that you each have seeking you out?
Usually, I get the sorts of people who are quieter people. They're quiet. They wouldn't want to talk to Sam for you know, because they're quite different. See, I'm very different to Sam. So I'll get people that come to me that are probably, in a way, like me. You know, they see in me that they can, well, and I suppose I'm a listener too. I'm really, you know, I don't have to say, I'm happy to just sit and listen.
You're a natural listener.
Just a natural listener. Some people, that's what they want. They want to be able to talk about their stuff and have someone really, really listen to them. And usually it's women that come to me. I don't have any men to come to me, well, except that guy at school.
That's funny, isn't it? The first story you told was about a guy.
It was about a guy, but
yeah.
And the other thing for me was that I had people that were outside Christianity. They weren't Christians. That I had at the high school where I worked, who encouraged me to better myself, these were teachers, few teachers. Eb, you're wasted here. You can do better than this. And I'm thinking, no one said that to me before. No one had said that to me before. I was in my late 20s, early 30s at that stage.
So they saw things in
They saw
you
things in me, you see,
that you didn't
that
see
I
yet.
didn't see. I mean, I got that job as a cleaner at the school. You know, that's the low, that's the low job in the school. But I had teachers coming to me and talking to me about this stuff, about their stuff. I'm thinking, oh, what's that about? You know, I didn't think I would get teachers coming and talking to me.
Now I need to have a
So
cough.
anyway,
I need to have a cough.
that's enough about that.
You can edit that out.
But we'll keep it in the full version. We'll tell people it's a special bonus.
She's going to go and get me a drink. I had a head cold just as we were leaving to come on our caravan trip. And oh, look at him, he's having a drink.
I came prepared, Sam.
Well, that's the difference between you and him.
Yeah, right. That is. Yes, well, that's a whole nother subject, isn't it? How we learn to do better, you know, and how well we do at learning to do better. So I've got a bit of a residual cough. I did take some cough medicine before we started today, but while Ed was talking, I'm getting this thing happening. Going, I'm gonna explode if I don't cough soon. I should be right now. We'll see how we go.
So, Chris, do you want us to give us questions you really want us to answer? I mean, I feel like we've kind of rabbited on a little bit.
Yeah. There's one that you started on that I had prepared that I wanted to get your thoughts on a little bit more, which is the role of the Holy Spirit in your conversation. So you spoke a little bit about the Holy Spirit giving you clarity, Sam, in that conversation to help that lady. Can you talk a little bit more about how the Holy Spirit has played a role within conversations?
Oh, for me, I find I asked God for wisdom when I was in the job, doing the job.
Or pastoring,
in pastoring. And I would get, and it was, you know, God putting something in my mind. I would have things pop into my head, something to say. And that wouldn't be something that I would have thought to say. But it was the Holy Spirit guiding me. I'm sure of that. So it would, you know, it would be relevant to what we were talking about. So, and it would, I sort of think, oh, well, that wasn't what I would think to do. So I know it was the Holy Spirit. So that's how it worked for me. That's how it works for me.
There's a couple of notes I'd make. So the first thing is that listening is a learned art for me. So it's natural to him. I'm more a talker and a storyteller. Would be my kind of natural rest point. So listening has been a learned art for me. And as I'm reflecting on this, I think there are two ways in which I have learned to listen that have been helpful in my role, if you like, as a help in the lives of others. So I think listening to people and some of the training we received over the decades around listening has been really helpful to us. So learning to listen in certain ways and for certain things, and to understand the things people say or do in particular ways. So we've had training that has helped us. But, you know, being able to be quiet when people are talking about things that might trigger some talking has been a learned art for me, and understanding when it's appropriate to speak and what might be appropriate to say in various circumstances. You know, it's experience, training, all grounded on a love for people, and for me, a curiosity about people. I think the start of it for me was curiosity. But the other thing I would say about this listening thing is I listen to what's going on in here as well. So I'm listening to the person, but then before I respond, often, in fact, it's habitual for me. So I listen to a person and I'm listening to their stuff. And then along the way, of course, I'm thinking, well, this sounds like this or that. Maybe this story would help. Maybe this thing that they don't understand yet, maybe. You know, have you ever thought about this? Those kinds of questions come up in my thinking. And all the time that's going on, there's also the still small voice sitting in my room with me. And I kind of have knowings. It's like the still small voice whispers a kind of a reassurance about a certain thought I would have. It's almost like sometimes it's me thinking of something and then I hear God's voice really. It's like this other that goes on in me that's probably there as a result of my submission to God. See, that's what I think. The Holy Spirit would be the way we would talk about that. But I don't use the word always Holy Spirit when I'm dealing with people who are not in a Christian circle, when I understand that expression. I talk about the still small voice, because people get that. Most people I have conversations with experience the still small voice. So it's listening to the still small voice, and sometimes the still small voice pushes back, like, don't say that. Yeah. Sometimes that would be a really good thing to say, you know. And that happens to us often, doesn't it? Both of us. Is that right? That happens to you?
No.
You have a sense that you only knew what to say because God was there helping. Yeah. And one of the things that happens to me too is I'm surprised often in the afterglow where people will say to me, you know, when you said that thing, it made a huge difference for me. I've had many, many, many stories like that now of people that I just thought I was having a conversation and having fun. And I don't know whether you've noticed this about me, but I like messing with people's heads, Chris.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's a shocker, really. But anyway,
do too much of that. It does too much of that.
But then people say to me, you know, when you said that, I'm thinking of one particular lady. She's in her early 40s now. I met her when she was in her mid-30s, and she had been traumatized by her family and by the church she was in. It wasn't a Lutheran church. A Lutheran church would never do this kind of thing. And she'd been terribly traumatized. And I was just having a conversation with her, and I said something that was just in my head and kind of part of the fun in the conversation. She said two things to me recently. She said, you know, I can't remember what it was now. She'd tell us. But she said that just was huge. It made this huge switch. It was something that she'd never thought about, that had never occurred to her. And what it did was threw her whole history of mistreatment into an entirely different light. She saw it in a completely different way. And then the other thing she said to me recently was that she never felt loved by her mum or her dad or a grandma and grandpa. And when I turned up as the pastor in the church he was attending, I was a retired guy and asked to do this work. She said, I knew you loved me. You know? And I didn't know that was going on. I knew none of this. But I just turned up in the space, being me and being open to God and you know, happy in that space, comfortable in the God space. And the most powerful thing for her, she says now, was that she knew I loved her. And I'll tell you, there's something else I want to say here too. When I look for a mentor for me, and particularly if, because of my background and some of the hurts that I suffered when I was young and the dysfunctionality I had as a result, I'd find criticism hard to deal with. But I know it's important that I let people into my space who can tell me the things I don't want to hear. But what I have a test for people. I want to know they love me. If they don't love me, there's an expletive here, you know, they can leave. You know, what's is there an expletive that comes up in your head? They can leave. And I have people in my life, and when I think about them, you know, like my good mate Nigel or you or others, and I'll ask questions that make me vulnerable. I know that you love me, you know. I think that's key, you know.
Yep.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that you know, when Jesus was asked what the greatest thing was, it was to love God. And he said the second is like it, to love people. Yeah.
Yep. Got a question around people who might be wanting to mentor others, and I actually want to put it in maybe up to 3 different categories. So if someone's looking to mentor others, what would you say to a young person who wants to mentor others? What would you say to someone who is approaching middle age? And what would you say to an older person? Each of those 3 groups that might be saying, hey, look, I think I could mentor people. I don't know if I am, but I'd like to start mentoring people. What would you say to each of those 3?
Well, I think for young people, so when you say young, what do you mean? What age?
Under 25.
Under 25. I think that's a bit more of a difficult one, really, because, well, it would depend who they were mentoring. You know, they need to be mentoring someone who's younger than them, for a start, because people look to someone usually older than them for a mentor, because they feel that they know more than they do, you know.
Yeah, there's kind of a cred thing.
A credibility that needs to be there for to be a mentor. And that's difficult in young people because, you know, they're still not growing up yet. They're not mature enough. They think they can do it, but, you know, they can't. You wouldn't be able to once they started it anyway. But unless they were exceptional young people, that have to be exceptional to do that. People that are 40, yeah, you know, I think that people at 40 can easily be a mentor, you know, given who they are, you know, what credibility they have. And certainly older people can do it. You know, I mean, when I was a young person, I thought, I want to listen to older people because they can teach me something. They've been on the earth a lot longer than me. You know, I really respected old people when I was young. So I think older people have had experience, they've had life experience, they've had, you know, if they're going to be a mentor as older people, they would have God experience. They would have a relationship with God for sure, because I don't think anyone that didn't have that would really want to be a mentor. It just wouldn't work.
Yep. So can I build on that on both extremes, Ev?
Yeah.
What would you say, and we'll put this bit in the extras bit. We won't put this in the Sunday morning, perhaps. But what would you say to an exceptional 25-year-old who is mentoring someone who is who needs some advice on mentoring someone? So go with that one first, and then I'll give you the other extreme. An exceptional 25-year-old who already is mentoring but needs some advice on what to do or how to do it.
So one who's mentoring, that's, just remind me again, that's,
Yeah, an exceptional 25-year-old who's already doing some mentoring type activity.
right,
So I think the assumption behind that too is that they're doing a good job,
doing a good job.
because he describes them as
Exceptional.
But of course they're young. There's things they don't understand because they're 25. And how would you go about, what's your question? How would you go about helping them?
How do you help them as to keep growing as a mentor and to be that kind of person?
Well, they would have to have humility, being humble, because I think that mentoring, if they're exceptional, they might get a bit of a big head about it. That's that happens easily. So they would need to have humility, and and kindness. Kindness would need to be in there. It could be exceptional, but they might not be that kind because they're young, still learning, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's about all I can say on that one. Really.
So I have some things I'd say into that space. So I would ask that person,
why are they doing it?
So that's
what's the motivation?
That would be a very good question to ask of a person who's mentoring. You've asked us that question. What I would say, if I was wanting to help a person who was 25 and already had influence in the life of others, which is really the key, it's really about being the kind of person who influences others. Some people are just, I don't know what it is really. Some people find themselves in a position where they have significant influence in the lives of others. Yeah. And so if a 25-year-old was in this position, I would ask them if they had a mentor. And I would ask them.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
And I would ask them. So my approach would be to ask questions. Well, I'd ask them if they wanted me to be in this space. Would you like me to be in this space? I have some things I'd like to say to you about what you're doing. I admire what you're doing. I think it's amazing. I see that you're having an impact on this other person's life, and you're clearly gifted in this area. So, I'd start by speaking some truths into their life, and then say, do you feel you get the kind of support you need in being a person of influence? Would you like me to speak into that space? You know what I mean? Because if people aren't listening, if people aren't listening, there's no point in talking. So never try and teach a pig to sing. That's So if there was a warm response to that, one of my first questions would be, do you have a mentor? And if the answer was no, I'd say, well, have you ever thought of having one? And no, I'm not offering, but you need to find one. That I don't know, a bit of a joke, But and so I think that's key. And I think that's key for any age.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as not needing others you're vulnerable with and who you think understand things better than you do. And humbly putting yourself in their presence. and allowing them to say the things to you they need to say. I have a friend who came to faith in the 90s, in the mid-90s, as a result of our ministry. And he went on to learn things and operate in areas that gave him understandings of life that I don't have in as much depth as he does. And it was interesting. He asked me if I would give him regular time. After we'd moved on in our church relationship, he went off to do what he did. I went on to do other things. And then it came back round. He got in touch with me and said, look, I'm coming to live in South Australia, which is where we were. He said, can I take you out for lunch once a month? Well, I'm always happy for someone to pay for a meal for me. So the answer was yes. I thought, wow, this would be amazing, because I really admire him and like what he has in his life. He has things. This is one of the things that I've been doing all my life. I look for people who have things I don't have that I want. I mean, one of the earliest examples of this was a guy, a neighbour of ours, who went on to be one of the best car salesmen in Australia. I wanted to have him in my life. He was already a friend, but I wanted him. I wanted to spend time with him, so that inevitably I started to understand what it was he did and how he thought that produced this class act in him. I wanted a bit of that. I wanted a bit of that action, So I thought he could do things that I couldn't do, and I wanted to understand that. So that was true with this friend that I was describing, who came to faith through our ministry, and then went on to learn things that I never had the opportunity to learn. And so I still meet up with him regularly. And in fact, one of the things he's done is trained as a psychologist, now works as a clinical psychologist. And he's just a stunner in my life. And he asks me the hard questions. But I know he loves me. And so I'm able to allow him in that space, one of the funny things that happens is I'll tell him about something that's happened in my life that I'm not too happy about. And he says, well, Sam, the question to ask is, how did you get here? So it's kind of this, you understand? Yeah, the point I'm making here is that he's able to ask me things that I really don't want to hear, What do you mean I'm accountable for this mess? And of course we laugh about it, because I see the question coming and I see the look on his face and I go, he's going to ask me, well, Sam, the question to ask is, how did you get here? And he's a guy who taught me that question.
Mhm.
I wouldn't have that question if I hadn't had that beautiful human being in my life.
All right.
Everything's I'm talking too much.
It's talking to
Yeah, I can recognise that on your face too, Ev. I've got just two more questions. I think there's others I'd love to ask, but I've got two more around older people and mentoring that I'd love to ask.
Right.
The first one is this: what would you say to an older person who is struggling to recognise the influence that they already have?
Oh, wow.
struggling to recognize it.
Yeah, struggling to see that they are a mentor.
So they're not intentional.
Possibly, or they are intentional but don't yet see the fruit. Might be the other.
Well, it would just be about encouraging them, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You just encourage them. And it might take some time, I'd say encourage them.
I agree. And see, if they're old and they don't see it yet, they may never see it.
They never see
And that's okay. So what I would do if I were asking the question that you're asking, so you're asking this question. If I found myself asking that question, so I saw this older person who was having a beautiful impact on the lives of others, a positive effect, I wouldn't tackle it directly. So I would tackle that indirectly. I would, all other things being equal, if I was asking that question, it sounds like I'd want to do what I could to be a help and a good support. And that's precisely what I would be. So if I found myself asking that question about someone, the implication would be that I actually care about it and want to invest. I would be willing to invest some time in it. And my way of investing time would be not to tackle the question directly, but to simply invest time, to ask them round for coffee, to offer them my friendship, out of which flows support, just to be a good friend to them who commits time, quality time, to them. And in fact, I think that's the key to influence. That really raises the broader question about, because that's really an influence question. You're asking, how am I going to influence this person to do it better? And the key is liking people and wanting to be a person who makes a difference for the better in the lives of others. And simply the way to do that is to invest time. Can't emphasize that too much. What you do is you give them the value of your time. And there's several things go on there. I mean, I get a benefit from that when I do it for others. But what it does is there's a subliminal message in that as well. People understand that they're valued when others invest time in them.
Yeah. It's quite simple, really.
And see, now you can see why people want to have us as mentors, because we're just so incredibly insightful and wise, you see.
I live with this, Chris.
I know. So we know that one of the traits that you bring to a mentoring relationship, Ev, because you live it every day, is tolerance and patience.
Yes. And sometimes it gets the better of me. It's exasperating sometimes.
So the last one I'd love to ask is, and this is a harder one, and this is not for anyone in our church, and it's not for anyone in your lives, because we don't have anyone in our lives like this, do we? But there are people in the world who are older who, for want of a better reason, come to realize that they aren't mentoring anyone. They come to realize that people aren't turning to them for advice or input. And some people are defensive about that. Some people, when they realize that about themselves, some people are really sad about that. When they realize that the world isn't turning to them for input and advice, and they thought that once they got older, people just would. What words of encouragement or correction might you have in that situation?
Ev just wants to tell them to get over it and move on. I can see it on her face. That's true, isn't it? Am I right about that? Oh, I got one.
Well, I mean, I would say mentoring isn't for them. It's not for them. And I would say, look, go out with your friend for coffee and have a chat. Just go out and have a chat with your friend.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's what I'd say.
So I wouldn't say the first bit.
I definitely would say the first bit.
I wouldn't tell them to get over it.
No, I wouldn't say get over it. I should say, look, I think mentoring is not.
Maybe it's not for you. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that. Actually, I might. Well, what's interesting is if you're asking the question, or that person is asking the question, here's the thing. If they are asking that question, they're probably going to make a good mentor. And I would say that to them. I'd say, you know.
Are they asking the question? Or are they just giving the information about how they feel? Are they asking the question about being?
I would accept that to be true. Even if they're just hurt. I mean, to me, this is the point. What happens to us as we do life is we come across pinch points, discomforts. And this is why you asked me if you do coffee with me. So what happens in our life is we come to a pinch point, something that makes us uncomfortable, something we don't understand, something that we feel hurt about. And I think these are the things that God has allowed in the world and in our lives, because once sin was in the world, the only option was pain. And every time we're uncomfortable, it creates an opportunity to ask questions. And if people ask questions, they've actually taken the first step toward learning. And so even if there are lots of other things going on here, the mere fact that they're asking the question would be very encouraging to me, and I would want to encourage them in that. And to think more about it. And then I'd say to them, you know, if you want to explore this with me, I'd be happy to have conversations with you about it. You know what I mean? Because if people have, so you're suggesting in this, I think, if I've understood it rightly, that this person wants to make a difference for the better, that wants to be a help to others. And one of the, if we ended up being in conversations about this stuff, one of my key things would be simply to spend time with others, to invest time in others, to be good to them, to take them out for a meal and pay for it, to have coffee with them and pay for the cake. You know what I mean? And there's a subliminal message in that. I mean, Ev and I don't have a lot of discretionary money, but we take people out and make the investment. We pay for the meal because there's a subliminal message in that. So does that answer the question?
It does. It's helpful. So, because and part of my motivation for asking was to get your thoughts on that, because I have heard, and I'm sure you have heard people as well say, "Oh, no one's turning to me. No one's," and they want to know why.
Well, the fact that they're asking that question is very healthy and very positive, and I would say that. And then I would say, would you like to come out for coffee? I'm paying. So I'd create an opportunity. You see, if they're asking that question, they're really saying, would you help me? I think I'd explore that with them. Would you help me do this better? And my way of doing that would be simply invest the time and be clear about my willingness to invest in them. You know, I'm paying for the coffees. I know it sounds like it kind of sounds like not such an important thing, but I think it is. I think the fact that we give people our time and are willing to spend money on them. I mean, it sounds odd, really, but I think that matters. You know. On the other hand, I do like people taking me out and spending money on me. But see, I think that makes the point, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I have a young guy that I've been mentoring for about 5 years now. And it started when he asked me if I'd meet with him regularly. He had a particular purpose in mind. And he's supposed to have some kind of spiritual guru in his life so that he could get involved in this program. And I told him I wasn't prepared to be his guru, but I would take him out for a meal once a month and buy the meal. 4 years, and after about 4 years of it, he was earning bucket loads of money and I was on a pension. And so I said to him, I said, now listen, mate, there's something not quite right about this. You know, I've been buying your meals for 4 years and now you're earning over $100,000 a year, and I'm still paying for your meals. I love him. He rang me up about a month later and said, "Are you free on such and such a day?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Come in your best clothes. We're going out." And he took me to one of the most expensive restaurants in the most expensive hotel in Adelaide and paid for my meal. I think he spent about $500. I was so embarrassed. I love his work. He must have learned. Well, precisely. Clearly my mentoring had reaped a wonderful reward. He could now mess with heads just as well as I could, you know. He messed with my head so bad. But, you know, I screwed it down and said, no, this is a beautiful thing that this young man gets this stuff, you know. It's just great. I mean, and see now, he sees me as his mentor, but actually I benefit as much as he does.
And he asked you, didn't he, to be his mentor when he was about 20?
No, 17.
17.
He was 17.
17.
And now he's 21.
I think that's a real quality person.
I just love the guy. I mean, I just enjoy his company. No. I don't know whether that answers the question either, and I've talked too much.
Not again, Chris. And you know when you do this sort of thing with an interview, you're going to get
hopeless, isn't it, Chris?
You know, you have to actually step in and say, "Sam, okay, let's get on to the next question."
Well,
next question.
This is the beauty of this, of the fact that it's recording. I wouldn't dare do this live, so I just cut it short partway through. But I get the benefit of the whole conversation, and the rest of the church, if they want the whole conversation, they have to go on YouTube to see it. So,
hey, listen, from both of us, I know that Ev doesn't show up there that often, but hi to everyone at Mawson Lakes Lutheran. I don't know what your proper name is. There it is. What is to say? There's something about Mawson.
Hang on, if I move my head out the way
or something, I don't know. But anyway, hi to all the people who know me, and you can see that behind every quality guy is an even more high quality woman, you know.
Yes.
Hi to everyone is really what I want to say.
Yeah, hi to those who have spoken to me. And thanks, Chris. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
No, thank you. It's a privilege to have been able to chat. It's always a privilege to see you both, but it's a privilege to be able to ask you questions on particularly on this topic. Is there anything else that you would like to say about mentoring and Christian faith, or just in general?
I've said all I want to say. Really, no. I appreciate your thoughts, your questions. I think your questions are great, and thank you. Thank you. I'm going to exit now.
Thanks. I'll hit stop on the recording.